Hey y'all, this is Stan, the podcast host of Talking with Friends. You can find us on YouTube streaming. Like, share, and subscribe with your community as we're trying to build our community of listeners, subscribers, and people sharing their comments and point of views. For Election Day 2024, we had two candidates, Kamala Harris, Democrat, and Republican Party, Donald Trump. Donald Trump was the winner of the election. Inauguration Day, he will be crowned as our president. And we see a lot of things coming out on social media, a whole lot of talk about how things are going to get, pretty tight, pretty bad, and where people are looking at how things are in America, and that's really a good thing to be looking at and to be understanding what's getting ready to happen. But I'm a music buff. I'm a music buff to the core. I've been a music buff for as long as I can remember. Probably, I'm 44 now, so I can't really remember the very first thing that I heard that kind of bit me. I want to say it was maybe Janet Jackson's Control album. I could be wrong because Mom and Dad were playing different things throughout the car, throughout the house, certain things like that. So I don't really want to even start there as far as that being the first music that I heard, because I heard a little bit of everything. But what I noticed is, and I did some research, some of the best albums were made in some of the most chaotic, weird, strange political stances, as far as the atmosphere of politics, as far as drugs in America, as far as crime in America, or as far as the racial gap or economic gap or whatever it may be. There was always some type of negative thing in the air, usually more than one, that was going on in the air. And there were some albums that I kind of wanted to gauge. I gauged Marvin Gaye, What's Going On, because that's one of my personal favorite albums. Nas Illmatic, which is also one of my personal hip-hop albums. I gauged, and also the last one was Into the Wu-Tang Clan. Oh yeah, and Jay-Z's Blueprint, the first Blueprint. And I gauged them. I did a little bit of research to see what the climate was like in America when these albums dropped. And pretty much all these albums had something going on with the economy, something going on with drugs in America, something going on with the racial gap, something going on with economics in America. All of these things were like turbulent in the atmosphere. But I'll tell you one thing that happened though. In the midst of all of these turbulent things going on in the atmosphere of America, or politics, or crime, or drugs, or economics, or the racial gap, or the rich getting richer. In the midst of these things, great music was created. Great albums were created. And I'm pretty sure if we not just take a scope of the albums that I named, Nas Illmatic, Jay-Z's Blueprint 1, Into the Wu-Tang Clan, the first Wu-Tang album. We look at these in Marvin Gaye's What's Going On. We look at these albums, and these albums are staples in music history. They could be looked at in somebody's list as the top 5, top 10 albums of all time. But if you look at the staple, if you look at the atmosphere that these albums were created in, and like I said in the beginning, I'm a huge music buff, not just African American music, not just pop music, not just alternative rock music, not just jazz, but all music pretty much, from Paul Simon to Pete Rock'n'Roll Smooth, to John Mayer, to Smashing Pumpkins, to Radiohead, to Nas, from Nas to No Doubt, from No Doubt to NERD, from NERD, you name it, Christopher Cross, all of these, this stuff makes up my musical ear, my musical palette, which is why my taste in music is pretty eclectic. But that's one thing I noticed, that even in the midst of, chaos or, things happening in the world, usually there's some good music that comes out of that, There's some very good music that comes out of that. Some staples in music have come out in rocky times in America. You know what I'm saying? They're not. It might be tight in America. Whatever it may be. Groceries might be high. Gas might be high. Whatever it may be. The cost of living might go up, and the wage is not going up. The wage of work is not going up. But there's one thing that does happen is there is some great music that seems to come out during those times. Great music that seems to come out during those times. I mean, you look at hip hop as a whole, from the time that it came out all the way to where we sit now in 2024. Most of the time, the best rappers come from the worst conditions. Most of the greatest lyricists, Rakim, Nas, Jay-Z, NWA, all of these people, they come from the toughest of circumstances, or they tend to end up in a neighborhood that's not pleasing to the average American. But ultimately they end up making the best art. And it's strange. It's not really strange if you think about it, because once it happens more than once, you're like, oh, okay, they don't need the best conditions to make the best music. And the cycle never stops. But I did notice that one thing, that during those times in America, and I connected to, because I look at where we are now, where we sit now, and people will say that America is divided, and one side doesn't understand the other side, and it's like nobody's listening to nobody. But at the same time, you got to admit that there's going to be some great things that are going to come from these times that we sit in right now. Like I said, me being a music buff, I can look at the scope of things that was happening when albums were created. Like Marvin Gaye being one of the greatest albums ever made, and you can literally listen to the content that he's singing about on the album and know what was going on in the world. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's a plus. That's a plus to be sitting where we're sitting now. Music is one of the things that it bridges the gap. Like, we don't have to have a conversation. We don't need to sit in the same room. We don't need to hold hands and sit Indian style. We don't need to do anything like that. Just put on Miles Davis' Kind of Blue, or put on Michael Jackson's Off the Wall, or put on Christopher Cross's Sailing, or put on something made by a Hall & Oates, you know what I'm saying? And watch what happens just off the midst of music. Nobody has to say anything. We'll all be on one accord when a song starts to play. One song starts to play. I work at a hardware store, and what they do is they keep music playing in the store. And what I'll notice is you'll get a newer song, but then you'll also get something that came out in the early 80s, and it'll be playing. And it's amazing to see someone of a certain age, they might be 40 or 50 or 60 or something like that, and they'll be standing at the register at the self-checkout, and they'll be like singing the song that's playing. And I'm like, man, that's something, you know what I'm saying? Because you can't even roll a dice and say who's gonna know the words to the song, who's gonna know who made the song. But one thing for certain is, if that song is playing and it resonates, you're gonna know that it resonates, because you'll hear people just at the register just singing. Like, it takes them back to a time to when they heard it, and everything that was going on possibly in their life or in their household. So it's universal. It's really universal. So I think that's one of the things that I'm excited to see with everything that's going on in the world right now. I know some people are not excited about Trump being elected. They wanted Kamala, and all the other things that are going on in the world right now. The war with Russia is still going on. All of these different things that are happening in the world. You see the price of groceries and gas and everything is increasing as far as the cost of things go. And the wage is not going up. Teachers are still getting paid a low wage, but they're still having to do the same amount of work, if not more work. All of these things that are happening in the world today. But music just seems to just calm certain things. You play something and it doesn't even matter what color we are. It doesn't even matter, where we come from, what nationality we are, what race we are. It kind of just it smooths out that rocky road, and it's amazing because it's kind of like music is a blessing. Music can do things that a speech from a politician can't do. Music can do things that nobody can tangibly do with their hands. But you play a particular song and watch what happens. It's something that I'm excited to see. What happens during the climate that we're in right now. I'm excited to see that. I don't know what will happen in the next, the term that Trump has. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But what I do know is, judging off of a cycle that we've seen, music-wise, there's going to be some good art being put out. There's going to be some very good art being put out. And I would like to talk about that more. Like I said, music is a love of mine, man. Like, it really is a love of mine. And I would really like to have some conversations about that to take apart. Was there a time that you had to hold on to music? Something that helped you make it through a song or an album that helped you make it through a tough season in your life. I can recall, I got two older sisters. My one older sister, she was really big on New Edition, Silk, Bobby Brown, and all that stuff. And I can remember when there was a hurricane that actually came through Virginia, and this was years ago. And I remember the hurricane was basically exiting our area. Well, I don't think it came directly to us, but I think we probably got some major parts of it. And I remember my oldest sister, she had a radio. She was washing the dishes in the kitchen, and she had the windows semi-cracked. So the wind was still blowing through the window, but it wasn't like full throttle hurricane strength. But I remember the storm was exiting our area, and she had the radio playing, and I remember Tender Love playing. She was playing Tender Love on the radio, washing the dishes, and this was the time where the quiet storm came on. So it was little moments like that I remember, because my grandmother had came to stay with us because we didn't know, we wanted her to be, with family when the storm came through, or when, whatever we got from it was. But all of those things that I remember, and music set right in the center of it. You see what I'm saying? So I'm pretty sure that everybody else has, or some people have, stories where music has set in the middle of a situation or a time in their life. And that's something I really like to have a conversation about, because I really like to have a conversation about it. So that was just a quick thought that I had, you guys. Like I said, like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this episode. I hope you did. Leave your comments in the comment section. Take this episode, pass it around, and become part of the community with us. Once again, this is Stan, the host of Talking with Friends, and I appreciate your ears. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you listening. Yeah, there we go. I appreciate you listening, and hope you guys have a great evening, have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.